Have you ever watched a courtroom moment that made you laugh out loud or brought tears to your eyes? In Judge Frank Caprio's court, this happens all the time. His courtroom isn't just about the law, it's about people, their stories, and their struggles. Judge Caprio is known for his kindness, his sense of humor, and his fairness. He doesn't just look at the rules, he looks at the person standing before him. In this video, we'll share some of the craziest and most unforgettable courtroom moments that have ever happened in Caprio Court. Before we dive into these unforgettable courtroom moments, make sure to hit the like button if you enjoy heartwarming stories, and subscribe if you want to hear more incredible cases like these. Don't forget to ring the bell so you never miss an update. Now, let's take a closer look at some of the most craziest courtroom moments of all time in Judge Caprio's court. Trust me, you won't want to miss these touching and sometimes hilarious stories. The room was bustling as an elderly man named Joe slowly made his way to the defendant's podium. He was neatly dressed, his military hat perched proudly on his head. Judge Caprio greeted him warmly. "Good morning, sir. You're here for a parking violation near the hospital," the judge said, glancing at the case details on his desk. Joe nodded, his hands gripping the podium for support. "Yes, Your Honor. I parked there because I was visiting my wife. She's in the hospital." The judge's face softened as he leaned forward. "Tell me about your wife." Joe hesitated, his voice trembling as he replied, "We've been married 54 years, Your Honor. She's my everything." The courtroom fell silent, the weight of his words filling the air. Judge Caprio nodded respectfully. 54 years is a long time. What's her condition, if you don't mind me asking?" "She's recovering from surgery," Joe said quietly. "I visit her every day, no matter what. She needs me." Judge Caprio leaned back in his chair, visibly moved. "Joe, it's clear you're a man of great loyalty. Visiting your wife is far more important than worrying about parking fines." He paused for a moment, then added with a smile, "Do you have any children?" "Yes, Your Honor. 3 daughters and 5 grandkids," Joe said, his pride shining through. "And I'm sure they all look up to you for the example you've set." The judge replied warmly, "You're dismissed. No fines today. Please focus on taking care of your wife." The courtroom erupted into applause as Joe smiled softly, his eyes glistening. He nodded at the judge and said, "Thank you, Your Honor. God bless you." As Joe walked out, Judge Caprio addressed the courtroom. "This man represents the kind of love and dedication we all aspire to. At his age, he could be the one needing care, yet he's still putting others first. That's the definition of selflessness." From moments that tug at your heartstrings to stories that make you laugh out loud, Judge Caprio's courtroom has seen it all. Up next, a case with a twist you'll never expect. The next case brought a young man named Ryan to the stand. He was charged with speeding in a residential area. Judge Caprio looked over the details before addressing him. "Ryan, you're here for speeding. What's your explanation?" Ryan smiled nervously. "Your Honor, I know this sounds bad, but I was in a hurry to get ice cream before the shop closed." The courtroom chuckled, and Judge Caprio raised an eyebrow. "Ice cream? That's a new one. What flavor was worth speeding for?" Ryan grinned sheepishly. "Mint chocolate chip. It's my favorite." And they were about to close. The judge leaned back, a smile creeping across his face. "So you thought a speeding ticket was worth it for mint chocolate chip ice cream?" "Well, I didn't think I'd get caught," Ryan admitted, laughter rippling through the courtroom. Judge Caprio chuckled. "Ryan, you're young, and I appreciate your honesty. But speeding in a residential area isn't just about you. There are kids, families, and pets who could get hurt." Ryan nodded solemnly. "I understand, Your Honor. It won't happen again." The judge thought for a moment. "Here's what I'll do. I'll reduce your fine to $50, but only if you promise me you'll drive safely from now on. Ice cream isn't worth risking lives for." Ryan smiled in relief. "I promise, Your Honor. Thank you." As Ryan left, Judge Caprio joked, "Now I'm craving mint chocolate chip ice cream myself." The courtroom erupted in laughter. While some cases are lighthearted, Others bring profound life lessons. Let's move to a story that highlights the resilience of the human spirit. A young woman named Maria approached the podium, clutching a small notebook. Her face was a mix of nerves and determination as she faced Judge Caprio. The judge greeted her with his usual warmth. "Good morning, Maria. You're here for a series of parking violations. What happened?" Maria sighed deeply. "Your Honor, I'm a single mom with 2 kids. I was late to pick them up from school a few times, and I parked in the wrong spots because I couldn't afford to be late again. My boss doesn't understand my situation, and if I lose my job, I don't know what I'll do." Judge Caprio listened carefully, his expression serious but kind. "How old are your kids?" "They're 8 and 5, Your Honor," she said, her voice trembling. "My son has asthma, and my daughter is in kindergarten. I do my best, but it's hard." The courtroom was silent as Maria continued, explaining how she worked 2 jobs to make ends meet. Judge Caprio nodded thoughtfully. "Maria, I can see you're doing everything you can for your kids, but parking violations, especially in school zones, are taken seriously because they're meant to protect children." Maria nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I understand, Your Honor. I'm not making excuses. I just didn't have another option in those moments." Judge Caprio took a deep breath and then addressed Maria with a gentle tone. "Maria, being a parent is one of the hardest jobs in the world, and being a single parent, well, that's even harder. You've shown great strength in trying to do the right thing for your kids." He paused, then continued. "Here's what I'm going to do. I'm dismissing your fines, but I'm also going to connect you with a local organization that helps single mothers with transportation issues. They might be able to help you avoid situations like this in the future." Maria's eyes widened in disbelief. "Thank you, Your Honor. I don't know what to say." "Just keep doing your best for those kids," Judge Caprio said with a smile. "And tell your son and daughter they're lucky to have a mom like you." The courtroom erupted into applause as Maria wiped her tears and nodded gratefully. Judge Caprio turned to the audience. "Maria is a reminder of how hard some people work just to make it through the day. The law is important, but so is understanding the context of someone's life. We should all strive to help, not just judge." From parents fighting for their families to unexpected acts of kindness, Judge Caprio's courtroom is full of surprises. Let's move on to a case that left everyone in awe of human generosity. A man named Robert stepped forward, his clothes worn and his eyes weary. He was here for multiple unpaid parking tickets. Judge Caprio greeted him warmly. "Good morning, Robert. It seems you have quite a few tickets here." The judge began. Robert nodded slowly. "Yes, Your Honor. I've been living in my car for the past year, so I don't have anywhere else to park." The judge's face softened. "Living in your car? Tell me about your situation." Robert explained how he had lost his job after an injury and couldn't afford rent. "I'm trying to get back on my feet, but it's been hard," he said, his voice breaking. The courtroom was silent, the weight of his words sinking in. Judge Caprio leaned forward, his tone empathetic. "Robert, I'm sorry to hear about your struggles. It's clear that you're not just avoiding responsibility. You're dealing with circumstances beyond your control." He paused, then asked, "Have you been able to find any work?" Robert shook his head. "Not yet, but I'm trying." The judge nodded thoughtfully. "Robert, I'm dismissing all of your tickets. But more importantly, I want to connect you with a program that helps people in your situation find housing and jobs." Robert's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Your Honor. I don't know what to say." "Just keep trying, Robert," Judge Caprio said with a smile. "Sometimes life gives us more than we can handle, but with a little help, things can turn around." As Robert left the courtroom, the judge addressed the audience. "We often see people at their lowest points in this courtroom. The law isn't just about punishment. It's about helping people find a way forward. Some cases are about second chances, while others remind us of the power of kindness. Let's move on to a case that will leave you smiling. A 16-year-old boy named Liam stood before Judge Caprio. He had been caught speeding in his mother's car. "Liam, you've got a speeding ticket here. What's your excuse?" the judge asked with a smile. Liam fidgeted nervously. "Your Honor, I was rushing to deliver groceries to an elderly neighbor. She's 85 and lives alone." The judge's eyebrows raised in surprise. "You were delivering groceries? Tell me more." Liam explained how he had started helping his neighbor during the pandemic and had continued ever since. Judge Caprio smiled warmly. "That's commendable, Liam, but speeding is dangerous no matter the reason." Liam nodded. "I know, Your Honor. I'll be more careful." The judge paused, then said, "Liam, I'm reducing your fine to $20, but I want you to promise me you'll continue helping your neighbor and slow down while driving." Liam grinned. "I promise, Your Honor. Thank you." As Liam left, Judge Caprio turned to the courtroom. "This young man is a reminder that even small acts of kindness can make a big difference. Let's all take a page out of his book." An elderly man named Thomas stood before Judge Caprio. His posture was straight, and his demeanor was one of quiet dignity. He was a veteran, and his military cap was perched neatly on his head. Judge Caprio greeted him warmly. "Good morning, Thomas. It says here you're charged with running a red light. What happened?" Thomas cleared his throat. "Your Honor, I was on my way to the VA hospital for my monthly checkup. I didn't see the light turn red until it was too late. It wasn't intentional." The judge leaned forward. "How long have you been going to the VA?" "For about 10 years now," Thomas replied. "I'm being treated for some injuries I got during my service." The courtroom fell silent. It was clear that this man had given much for his country. Judge Caprio nodded thoughtfully. "Thomas, first and foremost, thank you for your service. We owe you a debt of gratitude." Thomas nodded humbly. "Thank you, Your Honor." Judge Caprio looked over the case details, then turned back to Thomas. "I'm dismissing this case. You've already done more for this country than most people ever will. But I'd like to ask you something. What advice would you give to young people today?" Thomas smiled faintly. "I'd tell them to work hard, respect others, and never take freedom for granted. It comes at a cost." The judge nodded, visibly moved. "Wise words, Thomas. Thank you again for your service. I wish you good health and happiness." The courtroom erupted into applause as Thomas left, a reminder of the sacrifices made by so many to ensure the freedoms we often take for granted. Not every case in Judge Caprio's courtroom is about life-altering sacrifices. Sometimes, they're about small moments that reveal the humor and humanity in all of us. A 10-year-old boy named Charlie stood next to his father, looking sheepish but struggling to contain his laughter. The charge? His dad had been caught speeding in a school zone while rushing to drop Charlie off at school. Judge Caprio grinned as he addressed the boy. "Charlie, you look like you've got something to say. Should your dad be guilty or not guilty?" Charlie burst into laughter, unable to speak. The entire courtroom chuckled along with him. The judge smiled warmly. "Okay, let's try this. Did your dad speed because you made him late?" Charlie nodded vigorously. "Yes, Your Honor. I forgot my backpack at home, and we had to go back and get it." The courtroom laughed again, including Charlie's dad, who shrugged apologetically. "He's telling the truth, Your Honor. I didn't want him to miss school." Judge Caprio leaned back, clearly enjoying the moment. "Well, Charlie, since it's partly your fault, do you think you should help your dad pay the fine?" Charlie shook his head quickly, his eyes wide. "No way." The room erupted in laughter again. Judge Caprio smiled and said, "Well, I think you've both learned a lesson here. I'm dismissing the case, but Charlie, make sure you're ready on time from now on, okay?" Charlie nodded earnestly. "Yes, Your Honor, I promise." The judge chuckled as he closed the case. "Another happy ending," he said, his tone light but full of warmth. From heartfelt moments to light-hearted laughter, Judge Caprio's courtroom is a reflection of the many facets of humanity. Now, let's dive into a story of a man who turned a small mistake into an opportunity to give back. Michael, a middle-aged bakery owner, stood before Judge Caprio. He had been ticketed for parking in a loading zone for too long. "Good morning, Michael," the judge began. "What happened here?" Michael sighed. "Your Honor, I was delivering leftover bread and pastries to the local shelter. I do it every evening after we close. That day, I got held up because the shelter staff was short-handed, and I ended up leaving my car in the loading zone longer than I should have." The judge raised an eyebrow. "You deliver food to the shelter every day?" Michael nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. We don't like to see food go to waste, and the shelter always needs more supplies." Judge Caprio leaned back, visibly impressed. "That's a wonderful thing you're doing, Michael. How long have you been doing this?" "About 5 years now," Michael replied. "It's just a small way to give back." The judge smiled warmly. "Well, I think the city can afford to let this one slide. I'm dismissing the fine, and I want to thank you for your generosity. It's people like you who make our community stronger." Michael nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Your Honor." Judge Caprio addressed the courtroom. "This case reminds us that even small acts of kindness can have a big impact. Let's all take a page out of Michael's book and find ways to give back to those in need." One afternoon, Judge Caprio greeted a young man, Jason, who had been charged with reckless driving. The teen appeared before the judge with his father, a stern-looking man in his 50s. The judge wasted no time in asking Jason about the charge. "What happened?" he inquired. Jason, looking both nervous and guilty, explained, "I was showing off for my friends, Judge. I wasn't thinking. I just wanted to impress them, and I ended up losing control of the car." Judge Caprio nodded and turned to Jason's father. "What do you think about this?" The father sighed heavily. "I raised him better than that, Judge, but kids make mistakes." Judge Caprio nodded again. "It's true, kids make mistakes, but this could have been a lot worse. You could have hurt someone, or worse, hurt yourself." Jason looked down, ashamed. "I'm really sorry, Judge. I didn't mean to cause trouble. I know, son," Judge Caprio interrupted gently. "But your actions affect more than just you. You have a family, a future. You need to think about that next time." Jason nodded. "I understand, Judge." Judge Caprio paused for a moment, reflecting on the young man's potential. "You're a good kid, Jason. I believe you'll do better. I'm going to dismiss this case with a warning, but you've got to prove it to me, okay?" Jason's eyes widened in disbelief. "Thank you so much, Judge. I promise I'll do better." In a later session, Judge Caprio encountered a woman named Louise, who had been caught for a parking violation. As she stood before him, she looked like she had been through a lot. "Judge, I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I didn't mean to park illegally, but I just didn't know what else to do." "Why don't you tell me what happened?" Judge Caprio asked, leaning forward in his seat. Louise explained through her tears that she had just lost her husband after a long battle with cancer. "I wasn't thinking clearly, Judge. I just wanted to be by his side one last time before he passed away." Judge Caprio listened carefully, his face softening with understanding. "Losing someone you love is never easy, especially when you have to face the world without them." Louise nodded, wiping her tears. "It's hard, Judge. It's like the whole world changed, and I can't keep up." Judge Caprio gave her a moment to collect herself before speaking again. "I'm sorry for your loss, and I understand why you might have made that mistake, but you need to take care of yourself too." After a long pause, Judge Caprio smiled gently. "I'm going to dismiss the ticket, but I want you to promise me something. You're not alone. You've got people who care about you. Lean on them." Louise managed a small smile. "Thank you, Judge. I'll try." Judge Caprio's courtroom isn't just a place for legal proceedings. It's a stage for humanity, where stories of resilience, kindness, and humor unfold every day. From the struggling single mother to the generous bakery owner, these moments remind us of the importance of compassion and understanding. As we close, let's carry forward the lessons from these cases, that life is rarely black and white, and that every person deserves to be heard, understood, and treated with dignity. Thank you for joining us in this journey through the craziest courtroom moments of all time in Caprio Court. Don't forget to share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. Until next time, take care and lead with kindness.